My name is Iris, and I am 32 years old. There was a moment standing in our penthouse apartment overlooking the glittering city skyline when my husband looked me straight in the eyes and said, "You will never survive without me. You have nothing. You are nothing." Those words should have destroyed me. For a long time I believed them, but that night marked the beginning of something he never saw coming. That night I realized I had been living in a beautiful prison, and the only person who could set me free was myself. Before I tell you how I proved him wrong, I want to know where you are watching this from. Please hit like and subscribe, because what happened next changed my life in ways I never imagined possible. Let me take you back 5 years to when I first met Marcus. It was at a charity gala downtown, one of those elegant affairs where champagne flows freely and everyone wears their finest clothes. I was working as an event coordinator, making sure everything ran smoothly behind the scenes. Marcus was one of the guests, a real estate developer who had inherited his family's company and expanded it into something impressive. Our paths crossed near the silent auction tables when he asked me about one of the art pieces on display. He was charming in that confident way successful people often are. Tall, well-dressed in an expensive suit, and he had this way of making you feel like you were the only person in the room when he talked to you. We spent maybe 20 minutes chatting that evening before he had to leave, but he asked for my number. I gave it to him, flattered, and a little surprised that someone like him would be interested in someone like me. The courtship was intense and overwhelming in the best way. Marcus pursued me with determination. Expensive dinners at restaurants I had only read about in magazines. Weekend trips on private jets to places I had never been. Designer gifts that made my friends gasp with envy. He made me feel special, chosen, like I had won some kind of lottery I didn't even know I had entered. 8 months after that first meeting, Marcus proposed. We were at an exclusive restaurant on the top floor of a building downtown, the kind of place where you need reservations months in advance. The ring was enormous, a diamond so big it felt heavy on my finger. I said yes without hesitation because I was swept up in the romance of it all, in the idea of this fairy tale life he was offering. The wedding was everything a girl could dream of. We got married in Italy in a centuries-old villa surrounded by vineyards and olive groves. 200 guests flew in from all over the country. My dress cost more than my car. The honeymoon was 3 weeks in the Maldives, staying in an overwater bungalow on a private island where we had our own butler, and the ocean stretched endlessly in every direction. Everything seemed perfect, like I had stepped into a movie about someone else's life. But looking back now, I can see the signs I missed. The small things I brushed off as Marcus being generous and protective. He chose my wedding dress, insisting he wanted me to look perfect. He planned our entire honeymoon without asking what I might want to see or do. He picked out all the furniture for our penthouse apartment without consulting me on style or color preferences. At the time, I thought he was just being thoughtful, taking care of details so I didn't have to worry. The first major change came 3 months after the wedding. Marcus sat me down one evening and suggested I quit my job. "You don't need to work anymore," he said with a smile. "I make more than enough for both of us. I want you to focus on being my wife, on managing our home. You deserve to relax and enjoy life." He made it sound romantic, like he was offering me freedom from the stress of working. And in some ways, it was tempting. My job as an event coordinator was demanding with long hours and difficult clients. The idea of not having that pressure was appealing. I hesitated, though. My career was important to me. I had worked hard to build my reputation in the industry, and I enjoyed the work. But Marcus was persuasive. He pointed out how much money he made, how my salary was barely a drop in the bucket compared to his income. He talked about all the things I could do with my time instead. Take cooking classes, join a book club, volunteer for causes I cared about. Eventually, I agreed. I handed in my notice at work feeling both excited and uncertain about this new chapter. The first few months of not working felt like an extended vacation. I spent my days decorating our apartment, trying new recipes, attending yoga classes, and spa appointments with other wives from Marcus's social circle. I went to lunch with women who spent their afternoons shopping and their evenings getting ready for whatever event their husbands needed them to attend. The conversations were pleasant but shallow, rarely going deeper than discussing restaurants or complaining about household staff. Slowly, a feeling of emptiness began creeping in. My days started to blur together with no real purpose or direction. I would wake up with Marcus in the morning, watch him get ready for work with purpose and energy, and then be left alone in our enormous apartment with nothing meaningful to do. I missed the sense of accomplishment I used to feel completing a successful event. I missed having colleagues to collaborate with. I missed having my own money that I had earned myself rather than having to use Marcus's credit card for everything. When I mentioned to Marcus that I was feeling unfulfilled, that maybe I wanted to look for part-time work or volunteer opportunities, he laughed it off. "You have everything," he said, gesturing around our luxurious apartment. "What more could you possibly want? Most women would kill to be in your position." His response made me feel ungrateful, like there was something wrong with me for not being satisfied with this life of leisure he had provided. Then I started noticing the financial control. All our bank accounts were in Marcus's name only. I had a credit card, but it was connected to his account, and he monitored every purchase. One day, I bought an expensive skincare set, $350 for products my dermatologist had recommended. When Marcus saw the charge, he confronted me about it. "Why do you need this?" "You already have skincare products. Can't you just use what you have?" He made me return it to the store. Standing at the counter explaining to the sales associate that my husband wanted me to bring it back was one of the most humiliating experiences of my life. After that, Marcus implemented an allowance system. He gave me $500 per week for personal expenses, and I had to account for where every dollar went. If I went over budget, I had to explain and justify my spending. I felt like a child asking her father for lunch money rather than a grown woman managing her own finances. But what could I do? I had no income, no savings account in my name, no financial independence whatsoever. My relationships started suffering too. My old friends from before Marcus began drifting away. It was awkward going out with them because I could not afford to split bills anymore, and having Marcus pay for everything made me feel embarrassed. They had careers and lives and ambitions they talked about with excitement. I had nothing to contribute to conversations except stories about Marcus's business deals or the latest charity event I had attended on his arm. My family noticed the changes in me as well. My mother, Patricia, commented during one of our phone calls that I seemed different, quieter, less like myself. My younger sister, Sophie, asked me directly if I was happy. I defended my marriage. Marcus insisted everything was wonderful, but deep down I knew something was fundamentally wrong. I just was not ready to admit it yet, not even to myself. Social events with Marcus's colleagues became performances where I had to play a role. I learned to dress the way he wanted, to laugh at the right moments, to stay quiet when business was discussed. After each event, Marcus would critique my behavior. "You talked too much to that investor," he would say, or "You should have worn the navy dress instead of the black one." Every outing came with a post-mortem analysis of my performance as his wife, and I was always found somehow lacking. My 31st birthday arrived and Marcus threw a lavish party at our penthouse. He invited his business associates, his friends' people I barely knew. The apartment was filled with expensive decorations and catered food and a live jazz band playing in the corner. On the surface, it looked like an incredible celebration. But as I moved through the crowd in my designer dress, accepting congratulations and compliments, I felt invisible. This party was not really about me. It was about Marcus showing off about him demonstrating his wealth and success to his network. I was just another expensive item on display like the art on the walls or the champagne in everyone's glasses. After the last guests left and the caterers cleaned up, I locked myself in the bathroom and cried. I looked at my reflection in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back at me. Yes, I was wearing a beautiful dress and professional makeup and jewelry worth more than most people make in a year, but my eyes looked hollow and sad. I felt like a stranger in my own skin. Marcus knocked on the door, his tone annoyed rather than concerned. "What is wrong now? Everyone is waiting." But everyone had already left. He just wanted me to stop whatever I was feeling and return to being the perfect, uncomplicated wife he expected. The next morning, I tried to have a serious conversation with him. I told him I wanted to go back to work, or at least start doing meaningful volunteer work. His response was immediate and firm. Absolutely not. What would people think, that I cannot provide for my wife? That would be embarrassing for me. I tried to explain that it was not about money, that I needed purpose and something of my own. But Marcus was ice cold in his response. "Your purpose is being my wife. That should be enough." Our argument escalated quickly. Marcus raised his voice, something he rarely did, which made it all the more frightening. "I gave you everything. This apartment, your clothes, this lifestyle. You were just an event coordinator making $40,000 a year before you met me. Now you live in luxury, and you are complaining." It was the first time he had directly belittled my former career, making it sound worthless and insignificant, making me feel small and ungrateful for wanting anything more than what he had given me. I backed down and apologized because I had learned that keeping peace was easier than fighting. But inside, resentment was building like pressure in a sealed container. The following weeks were tense. Marcus tightened his control even further. He started using a location tracking app on my phone, claiming it was for my safety in case something happened. But he used it to question everywhere I went, everyone I saw. I met my old college friend Jade for lunch one afternoon, the first time I had seen her in months. Jade had become a marketing director at a tech company and was glowing with excitement about a new campaign she was leading and a promotion opportunity on the horizon. Listening to her talk about her work and her accomplishments, I felt a sharp pang of jealousy mixed with regret. She had a career independence purpose. I had none of those things. During our lunch, Marcus texted me 5 times, asking where I was, who I was with when I would be home. Jade noticed and asked if everything was okay. I made excuses saying he just worried about me, but her concerned expression told me she was not convinced. When I returned home, Marcus was waiting by the door. "Who is Jade? Why don't I know her?" He interrogated me about our conversation, what we had discussed, why I had not mentioned this lunch to him beforehand. I tried to explain that Jade was an old friend from college, that it was just a casual lunch. But Marcus made me feel guilty, like I had done something wrong by having a meal with a friend without his explicit permission. This pattern repeated itself with other friends and family members. Marcus always found something to criticize about the people in my life. They were too loud, too opinionated bad influences. He subtly but consistently discouraged me from maintaining relationships outside our marriage. The isolation increased steadily, like walls closing in around me inch by inch. Marcus had business dinners several times a month, where I was expected to attend as the perfect corporate wife. Smile, be charming but not too outgoing. Look attractive but not attention-seeking. Never discuss business, never express strong opinions. Just be decorative and pleasant. One particular dinner stands out in my memory as especially degrading. Marcus's business partner Keith asked me what I did for a living. Before I could even open my mouth to respond, Marcus jumped in with a laugh. She manages our home. That is a full-time job keeping me organized. Everyone at the table laughed along, but the tone was condescending, like managing a household was some cute hobby rather than real work. Keith's wife, Diana, owned a successful boutique downtown and talked passionately about expanding to a second location. Marcus made a comment to Keith about how exhausting it must be having a working wife, implying that Diana's career was a burden Keith had to bear rather than an asset to celebrate. I felt humiliated by Marcus's attitude, by the implication that a woman's worth was measured by how little she burdened her husband with ambitions or needs of her own. Later that night, I tried to tell Marcus how his comments had made me feel. "You made me sound useless at dinner." Marcus looked genuinely confused by my complaint. "I complimented you. I said you manage our home. That is important work," but his tone when he said it made clear he did not actually believe that. He was placating me, telling me what he thought I wanted to hear, while still maintaining his position that my existence should revolve entirely around serving his needs. The financial control became even more restrictive. Marcus reduced my weekly allowance without any explanation. When I asked why, he said I had been spending too frivolously. The frivolous spending he was referring to was a $75 birthday gift I had bought for my sister Sophie. He called it wasteful. I felt trapped in a gilded cage where every movement was monitored, every dollar accounted for, every decision made by someone other than myself. Then came the phone call that represented a turning point. My former boss, Angela, called me out of the blue on a Tuesday afternoon. She had moved to a different event management company and was building a new team. She offered me a position as senior event manager with better pay and creative freedom. "I always thought you had real talent, Iris," she said warmly. "Come back to us. You are wasted sitting at home." I felt a surge of excitement and hope, emotions I had not experienced in months. This was a good opportunity, a chance to reclaim part of myself I had lost. When Marcus came home from work that evening, I told him about Angela's offer. I expected him to be happy for me, or at least willing to discuss it. Instead, he laughed. Actually, laughed out loud. "You want to go back to work? Planning parties, that is not a real career, Iris. Besides, I forbid it." The word forbid hit me like a physical slap. I felt something crack open inside my chest. "You cannot forbid me," I said, my voice shaking. "I am an adult. This is a good opportunity." Marcus's expression turned cold in a way I had rarely seen. "You will not take that job. You are my wife, and you will do what I say. And if you don't like it, there is the door. But remember, everything you have is because of me." Then he said the words that would echo in my mind for months afterward. "You are nothing without me." I stood frozen in our living room, stunned into silence by the cruelty and finality of his statement. Marcus grabbed his briefcase and left for an evening meeting, slamming the door behind him. I sat alone in our massive apartment, surrounded by luxury I had not earned, wearing clothes I had not paid for, living a life that was not really mine. I called Angela back with trembling hands and, declining the job offer, trying to keep my voice steady so she would not hear me falling apart. Angela's concern came through the phone clearly. "Iris, are you okay? You don't sound like yourself." I lied and said I was fine, that I just was not ready to return to work yet. After hanging up, I broke down completely, crying so hard I could barely breathe. I realized with devastating clarity that I was trapped. No money, no job, no independence. If I left Marcus, I would have nothing exactly as he had said. That night, Marcus returned home late with an expensive necklace. He presented it to me with an apology that felt rehearsed. "Sorry for being harsh earlier. You know I love you. I just want what's best for you. Working is so stressful, and you don't need that pressure in your life." It was classic manipulation being cruel, and then immediately sweet, keeping me off balance and confused. I accepted the necklace and his apology because that was what I had been conditioned to do. But something fundamental had shifted inside me. A spark of defiance had been lit, a quiet determination that refused to be completely extinguished. That night after Marcus fell asleep, I took my laptop into the bathroom, closed the door quietly, and searched online for how to start a business with no money. I had no plan yet, no clear idea of what I was going to do, but I knew I had to do something. Over the following weeks, I began researching in secret. I only used incognito browsing mode and deleted my search history after every session. I only looked things up when Marcus was at work or asleep, terrified he would discover what I was doing. I learned about the world of online businesses, about e-commerce and consulting and digital services. I read stories of women who had built successful companies from their laptops, women who had escaped situations similar to mine. Some of their stories brought me to tears because they proved escape was possible. The problem was immediate and obvious. I had zero capital to start anything. All our money was controlled by Marcus. I could not open a bank account without him knowing about it. My weekly allowance barely covered basic personal expenses. I had to get creative and resourceful in ways I never had before. I started saving tiny amounts from the grocery money Marcus gave me. $10 here, $15 there, claiming groceries cost slightly more than they actually did. I hid the cash in an old box of tampons in the back of my bathroom cabinet, knowing Marcus would never look there. After 2 months of this careful skimming, I had saved $300. It was not much, barely anything really, but it felt like a small fortune. More than the money itself, it felt like a tiny rebellion, a small victory that was entirely mine. Each hidden bill represented a step toward freedom, toward a life where I made my own choices. Marcus's behavior continued to worsen in small, cutting ways. He made comments about my appearance constantly. "Are you gaining weight? You should watch what you eat. That dress is not as flattering as it used to be. Why don't you go to the gym more often?" Each comment was designed to undermine my confidence, to keep me feeling insecure and dependent on his approval. We attended a charity gala where a young entrepreneur named Simone gave a speech about building a sustainable fashion brand from scratch. She had started with just $500 and now ran a multi-million-dollar company. I sat in the audience completely mesmerized, hanging on every word she said about taking risks and believing in yourself. After her speech, I gathered my courage and approached her. We talked for maybe 10 minutes, but she was so warm and encouraging. She gave me her business card and told me to call her if I ever wanted to talk about business. Marcus noticed our interaction and was suspicious immediately. "Who was that woman you were talking to?" His tone was accusatory, like I had done something wrong. I downplayed the conversation, saying it was just friendly small talk. But Marcus added a cutting remark. "Don't get any ideas. You are not entrepreneur material." His dismissive words stung, but they also fueled my determination. I met Simone for coffee a week later, choosing a shop across town where no one Marcus knew would see us. I told her about my situation, though I was vague and embarrassed about the details. Simone understood immediately, her expression shifting to one of recognition and concern. "I have seen this before," she said gently. "Financial abuse disguised as generosity and care." It was the first time anyone had named what I was experiencing, and hearing it said out loud was both validating and devastating. Simone gave me practical advice. Start small and stay secret. Build something Marcus cannot control or take away. Focus on service-based work that does not require startup capital. Consulting, planning, anything knowledge-based. I thought about my skills and experience. Event planning was what I knew best. I still had vendor relationships from my old job. I understood project management and client relations. I could offer virtual event consulting services without needing an office or equipment beyond my laptop. I started building a plan with painstaking care. I created a free website using a basic platform, keeping everything generic and not connected to my real name. I offered virtual event planning consultations and marketed myself through new anonymous social media accounts. Every step was taken secretly and carefully. I only worked when Marcus was gone. I used coffee shop Wi-Fi instead of our home internet, so there would be no trace in our network history. I created a separate email address and got a Google Voice number so clients could reach me without calling my regular phone. My first client came after 3 weeks of marketing myself. A small nonprofit organization needed help planning a virtual fundraiser. They paid me $250. When I saw that money hit my secret account, I nearly cried with a mixture of relief and pride. It was not about the amount. It was about proving to myself that I could still do this, that I still had value and skills that people would pay for. It was about reclaiming a piece of my identity that Marcus had tried to erase. I opened a secret bank account using my mother's address for statements and set everything to paperless. Marcus would never know it existed. My business grew slowly through word-of-mouth referrals. More clients reached out for small projects. After 3 months, I was making approximately $1,000 per month. It was not a huge amount, but it was significant to me. It represented independence capability, proof that I was not nothing. My confidence began returning gradually, like a plant that had been dying in the dark, finally getting sunlight again. I had a purpose beyond being Marcus's wife. I had goals and projects and clients who valued my work. I was building something that Marcus could not control, and that feeling was intoxicating. But I had to maintain a careful balance, continuing to play the role of perfect wife at home. I attended Marcus's business events with the right smile. I managed our household exactly as he expected. I could not raise any suspicion or everything would fall apart. There was a close call one afternoon when Marcus came home from work earlier than expected. I was on my laptop working on a client proposal when I heard his key in the door. I slammed the laptop shut so fast I nearly broke it, my heart pounding in my chest. When Marcus walked into the room and asked what I had been doing, I lied and said I was shopping online for shoes. He seemed satisfied with that answer, but my hands were shaking for an hour afterward. After that scare, I set up location alerts on my phone tracking Marcus's movements. I created a quick panic protocol for closing all my work immediately if he came home unexpectedly. I became more careful, more paranoid, constantly looking over my shoulder. The stress was exhausting, but the alternative was giving up and accepting the life Marcus had designed for me. That was not an option anymore. Marcus's treatment of me did not improve. Valentine's Day came and went without acknowledgement from him. When I gently mentioned it, he said, "I show you love every day by providing for you. You don't need roses and chocolates when you have everything." His inability to understand that I needed emotional connection rather than just financial support was telling. Our 3rd wedding anniversary was approaching, and I hoped Marcus would plan something special. Instead, he scheduled a business trip for that exact week. "This deal is too important," he said. "You understand, right?" He did not even apologize for missing our anniversary, just expected me to understand as I always had. I spent our anniversary alone in the apartment, but instead of feeling sorry for myself, I worked on my business. I booked 3 new clients that day. It felt like a better gift to myself than anything Marcus could have bought me. When my sister Sophie came to visit, she commented that I seemed different, somehow happier despite everything. She asked what had changed. I wanted desperately to tell her the truth, but it was too risky. If Sophie accidentally mentioned something to our mother who might mention it to someone else, word could eventually get back to Marcus. I simply told her I was taking better care of myself. My mother called regularly to check in, and I could hear the concern in her voice when she asked how married life was treating me. I gave her the same rehearsed answers I gave everyone, insisting everything was wonderful. Patricia knew me too well, though, and she could sense something was wrong. "You know, you can tell me anything, right?" she said during one call. "I know, Mom. Everything is fine." Lying to my family hurt, but it was necessary to protect what I was building. My business reached a significant milestone when my secret account hit $10,000. 6 months of careful work had produced this result. It felt like a small fortune, but more importantly, it felt like a freedom fund. Money that could pay for a lawyer for an apartment deposit for a fresh start if I needed it. Simone continued mentoring me through regular coffee meetings, providing both business advice and emotional support. "You are doing amazing," she would tell me. "Keep going. You are almost there." Simone planted a bigger idea in my mind. You could scale this business, turn it into a real company. Full-service event management for corporate clients. You have the skills, the experience, and you are building a solid reputation. I was excited by the possibility, but also scared. A bigger business would be harder to hide. It would require more time and resources. But it also represented the potential for real income, real independence, a real future. I made a decision about my long-term goal. I would build this business to the point where I could leave Marcus and support myself. I estimated I needed at least $30,000 saved up before I could make the break. A lawyer would cost money. An apartment would require a security deposit and first month's rent. I needed a financial cushion to cover expenses while I transitioned to full-time entrepreneurship. At my current rate, reaching that goal would take another year or more. I could wait that long. I had to. One evening, we attended a dinner with Marcus's colleague Byron, who was going through a divorce. Byron talked about the proceedings with a cruel satisfaction that made my skin crawl. "She thought she could leave me and be fine," he said, laughing. "I made sure she got nothing in the settlement. Absolutely nothing. She is living with her parents now." Marcus nodded in approval, clearly seeing Byron's vindictiveness as something admirable. "Women don't understand that we hold all the cards," Marcus said, then glanced at me with a meaningful look. "Right, darling." I smiled sweetly and agreed because that was what was expected of me. "Of course, honey." But inside, my determination was hardening into steel. Marcus would learn that I was not as helpless as he believed, that I was not nothing, and I would prove it in a way he would never forget. 9 months into running my secret business, my monthly revenue reached $5,000. I had consistent corporate clients now. My reputation in the industry was growing steadily. I was operating under the business name Catalyst Events Consulting, and nobody connected it to me personally. I hired my first contractor, a virtual assistant named Madison, who handled scheduling and basic client communication. Having help freed up my time to focus on higher-level work and business development. The balancing act was becoming increasingly difficult, though. More client calls meant more time I had to carve out when Marcus was not around. More meetings meant more careful scheduling around his unpredictable hours. The stress was building, but so was my excitement. I was creating something real, something that mattered. Then came the opportunity that changed everything. I landed a major corporate client, a tech company that needed help organizing their annual conference. The project was worth $15,000, my biggest contract by far. I managed the entire event, virtually coordinating vendors and speakers and logistics for a conference in a different city. Marcus had no idea what I was doing, no clue that I was executing a complex, high-stakes project while he thought I was home arranging flowers and doing yoga. The event was a massive success. The client was thrilled with the results and asked if Catalyst Events could be their vendor of record for all future events. They were talking about a potential 6-figure annual contract. My secret bank account was growing steadily. I had $25,000 saved close to my target freedom number. I could almost taste independence. But Marcus was starting to sense something different about me, something he could not quite identify. "You seem distracted lately," he commented one evening. "Are you hiding something from me?" I deflected and said I was just feeling restless, that maybe I needed a new hobby. Marcus suggested I take cooking classes so I could learn to prepare better meals for him. Everything was always about him, always centered on how I could better serve his needs. I agreed to the cooking classes to keep him from asking more questions, attended one session, then quit and used that time for business meetings instead. There was another close call when a client called during dinner. My phone was on silent but kept vibrating repeatedly on the table. Marcus noticed and asked who was calling me so persistently. I claimed it was probably spam calls and said I would check later. After excusing myself, I texted the client that I would call back the next day. When I returned to the table, Marcus was watching me with suspicious eyes. Over the following days, Marcus started monitoring me more closely. I caught him trying to check my phone when I was in the shower. Fortunately, I had everything password protected and locked. But his increased attention made me nervous. One day, I accidentally left my laptop open with a spreadsheet visible. Marcus saw it before the screen went dark and asked what I had been looking at. My heart stopped beating for a moment. Quick thinking saved me. "Just budgeting," I said. "Tracking household expenses like you asked me to." He seemed to accept that explanation, but it was a wake-up call about being more careful. My business hit the $30,000 milestone in savings. I met Simone at our usual coffee shop to share the news. "You did it," she said with genuine pride in her voice. "You have your freedom fund now. The question is, when are you going to use it?" Her question lingered in my mind for days. When would I leave? Did I want to wait longer and save more, or was I simply afraid to actually take the leap? The truth was complicated. I was scared of Marcus's reaction when he found out, scared of being alone after 3 years of marriage, scared despite having money in the bank. There was still that insidious voice in my head whispering Marcus's words. "Can you really survive without him?" But I knew that voice was wrong. I had already proven I could survive. Now, I needed to prove I could thrive. Marcus's birthday arrived, and I bought him an expensive gift using money from my business, a Patek Philippe watch that cost $3,000. I wanted to prove that I could contribute something meaningful too. At dinner, when Marcus opened the gift, his reaction was not gratitude, but suspicion. "Where did you get the money for this?" His tone was accusatory, immediately questioning rather than appreciating. I had prepared my answer carefully. "I saved it from my allowance over several months. I wanted to get you something really special." Marcus examined the watch, then looked at me with calculating eyes. This costs at least $3,000. I give you $500 a week. That would require saving every single penny for 6 months straight without buying anything for yourself." He was doing the math in his head, and the numbers did not quite add up. I maintained my composure and smiled. I wanted to show my appreciation for everything you do for us. Marcus seemed partially satisfied, but not entirely convinced. The rest of the dinner was tense. He kept glancing between the watch on his wrist, and my face clearly sensing something was off, but unable to figure out exactly what. That night, Marcus confronted me directly. "I know you are hiding something from me. I can feel it. Are you having an affair?" I almost laughed at the question. An affair would have been simpler for him to understand than the truth. "No, Marcus. I am not having an affair." He grabbed my arms not violently but firmly enough to be intimidating. His face was inches from mine. "Then what? What are you not telling me?" I pulled away from his grip. "You are hurting me." He released me but did not apologize for his aggression. "I give you everything," he said, his voice rising. "This life, this apartment, every single thing you own. And you are keeping secrets from me. That is completely unacceptable." I felt my own anger rising in response, tired of his controlling behavior, tired of apologizing for my existence, tired of making myself smaller to fit into his vision of what a wife should be. For the first time in our marriage, I spoke back with real force. "Maybe I am tired of you giving me everything. Maybe I want something that is actually mine." Marcus's expression darkened dangerously. "What does that mean?" His voice had gone quiet in that way that was somehow more frightening than yelling. I should have stopped, but the words kept coming. "It means I am a person, not a possession. I had a life before you, and I could have a life without you. It was the biggest mistake I could have made." Marcus's rage was cold and controlled, which made it more terrifying than if he had simply yelled. "You think you could have a life without me?" He walked slowly to the floor-to-ceiling windows and stared out at the city lights below. When he turned back to face me, his expression was filled with contempt. "Let me tell you something, Iris. When I met you, you were nobody. You were making $40,000 a year planning birthday parties and small corporate events. You lived in a tiny studio apartment with a roommate. You wore cheap clothes from discount stores." He walked closer, his voice measured and deliberate. "I made you into something. I elevated you. I gave you this life, this status. Without me, you would go right back to being the nobody you were before." His words were designed to cut deeply, and they succeeded. But instead of crumbling like he expected, I stood firm. "I was somebody before you, Marcus. I had a career, friends, and family who loved me. I gave all of that up for you." Marcus laughed a harsh, bitter sound. "You gave it up. I liberated you from mediocrity. You should be thanking me every single day for rescuing you from that pathetic existence." He moved even closer, invading my personal space. "You want to know what you are without me? Nothing. You are absolutely nothing. You have no job, no income, no savings of your own. Even the clothes you are wearing right now, I bought them." He gestured expansively around our luxurious apartment. "Everything you see, everything you touch, everything you use, I provided it all. You contribute nothing to this household. You are decorative at best." Each word felt like a physical blow, but I felt something shifting inside me. Instead of feeling defeated, I felt sudden clarity. This was emotional abuse stated plainly and openly. I had been living in it for so long that I had normalized it, but hearing it articulated so baldly woke me up completely. Marcus was still talking, his voice dripping with disdain. "If you left me, where would you even go?" Back to your mother's house like a failure. What would you tell people that you could not handle being taken care of?" He laughed again. "No one would respect you. They would pity you." Poor Iris could not keep her wealthy husband happy. He paused for emphasis before delivering what he clearly thought was the final blow. "You will never survive without me. You are too weak, too dependent. I own you." The silence that followed felt heavy and thick. I looked at the man I had married, the man I had once believed I loved. I saw him clearly for the first time, stripped of all the illusions I had built around him. He was controlling, manipulative, and fundamentally cruel. When I finally spoke, my voice was calmer than I expected. "You are right about one thing. I did give up too much for you, but you are completely wrong about everything else. I am not nothing. I am not weak, and you do not own me." I walked past him into our bedroom and started packing a bag. Marcus followed me, his tone shifting from anger to disbelief. "What are you doing? You cannot leave. You have nowhere to go." I packed calmly and methodically, taking only my clothes and personal items. I left behind all the expensive jewelry he had given me, all the designer handbags, everything that represented his wealth rather than my identity. "I have exactly where I need to go," I told him without stopping my packing. Marcus grabbed the bag from my hands. "I forbid you to leave." There was that word again, the word that revealed his fundamental belief that he had the right to control my choices. I took the bag back from him firmly. "You do not get to forbid me anything anymore. I am done with this marriage. I am done with you." Marcus changed tactics immediately, his voice softening in that manipulative way I had seen before. "Okay, I am sorry. I went too far. Let us just sit down and talk about this calmly. Do not make a rash decision you will regret." It was the classic pattern of an abuser, rage followed by reconciliation, designed to keep me off balance and confused. But I was done falling for that cycle. "There is nothing to discuss," I said evenly. "You just showed me exactly who you are, and I finally believe you." I called for an Uber using the second phone. Marcus did not know I had my business phone with a separate number. When he noticed it, realization began dawning on his face. "Where did you get that phone?" His mind was working, trying to piece together what else I had been hiding. "What else have you been keeping from me?" I did not answer his questions. The Uber was 10 minutes away, and they were the longest 10 minutes of my life. Marcus alternated between threats and desperate pleas. "You will regret this. I will make sure you get nothing in the divorce." Then in the next breath, "Please don't go, Iris. I love you. I need you." But his words had lost their power over me. I stood by the door with my bag in hand, waiting for my phone to alert me that the driver had arrived. When the notification came through, I opened the door. Marcus made one final attempt to assert control. "You will be back. You cannot survive out there on your own. You will come crawling back within a week." I looked back at him one last time from the doorway, seeing him fully for what he was. "Watch me," I said. Then I walked out and closed the door behind me, leaving that life forever. In the back of the Uber, my hands were shaking uncontrollably. The driver asked if I was okay, and I managed to nod, even though tears were streaming down my face. I directed him to a small boutique hotel downtown, where I had researched as a potential safe space. I checked in using cash from my secret stash and registered under my maiden name. In the quiet hotel room, I finally sat down on the bed and allowed myself to fully process what had just happened. I had left my husband. I had walked away from the penthouse and the lifestyle and everything I had thought I wanted. I called Simone with trembling fingers. I did it. I said when she answered. I left him. She gasped. Oh my God, Iris. Are you okay? Where are you? I gave her the hotel information and she arrived within the hour carrying a bottle of wine and an abundance of emotional support. We talked for hours about everything that had happened, about my fears and hopes and plans for what came next. You are so incredibly brave, she told me. This is just the beginning of your real life. Late that night, alone in the hotel room after Simone had left, I opened my laptop and looked at my business accounts. $30,000 in the bank, a growing list of loyal clients, a legitimate business I had built entirely by myself while Marcus thought I was doing nothing but yoga and shopping. Marcus had been completely wrong. I was not nothing. I was already something significant, and I was going to become even more. The first week after leaving Marcus was a blur of logistics and emotions. I stayed in the hotel initially, then found a furnished apartment available for month-to-month rent. It was small, maybe a tenth of the size of the penthouse, but it was mine. I decorated it with my own choices, arranging furniture the way I wanted, choosing colors that made me happy rather than what looked impressive to visitors. For the first time in 3 years, I was living in a space that reflected who I actually was rather than who someone else wanted me to be. I filed for divorce, immediately hiring a lawyer named Catherine, who had a reputation as a tough negotiator. I paid her retainer fee using money from my business, feeling empowered by the ability to handle my own legal affairs. When Marcus was served with divorce papers, he was apparently shocked. According to Catherine, he had genuinely believed I would come back to him. His arrogance had blinded him to the possibility that I might actually follow through. Marcus tried to fight dirty during the divorce proceedings. He claimed I had contributed nothing to the marriage and therefore deserved nothing in the settlement. But Catherine fought back aggressively. During discovery, we found some interesting information about Marcus's business finances. His company was not doing as well as he had led everyone to believe, and there were some questionable financial practices that would not look good under scrutiny. Catherine used this information as leverage in negotiations. The settlement talks were contentious, but I had clarity about what I wanted. I did not want Marcus's money beyond what I was fairly owed. I wanted a clean break more than I wanted to punish him financially. We eventually agreed on a settlement of $50,000, which I considered payment for 3 years of emotional abuse and lost career opportunities. It was enough to give me additional security while I grew my business. I threw myself into Catalyst events with everything I had. No more hiding, no more fear, no more working in secret. I committed fully to my company, working 12 and 14-hour days 7 days a week. It did not feel like sacrifice, though. It felt like freedom. I was building something that mattered using skills I had developed over years, creating value that clients recognized and paid for. My first major move was renting a small office space. It was just one room in a shared building, but having a professional space outside my apartment felt significant. I brought Madison on as a full-time employee rather than a contractor. Seeing her name on my first official payroll felt like a milestone. I was not just self-employed anymore. I was an actual employer. I reached out to old contacts from my previous job in the events industry. Angela, my former boss, was thrilled to hear from me and excited about my new company. "I knew you had this in you," she said warmly. Other former colleagues were equally supportive, and my professional network rebuilt itself quickly. Referrals started coming in at a steady pace. The business grew rapidly over the following months. Word of mouth in the industry was powerful. Clients loved my attention to detail, my creativity, and my reliability. I had a reputation for delivering exactly what I promised, and corporate clients specifically started requesting Catalyst events by name. 6 months after leaving Marcus, my monthly revenue had reached $15,000. I hired 2 more employees, a project manager, and another event coordinator. My small team was mighty and motivated. The biggest win came when my previous tech client reached out with a massive opportunity. They wanted me to manage their national sales conference, a huge event with 2,000 attendees and a budget in the millions. It was an enormous responsibility and an incredible opportunity to prove what my company could do. I threw everything into making that conference perfect, and we pulled it off flawlessly. The client was ecstatic with the results and offered us a year-long retainer contract worth $150,000. With that contract secured, my business was legitimately established. I moved Catalyst events into a bigger office suite and hired 3 additional employees. We invested in better technology and systems. I was building real infrastructure for sustainable growth. 1 year after leaving Marcus, my company was generating $30,000 per month in revenue. That was $360,000 annually, more than Marcus and I had lived on during our marriage. I had not just survived without him. I was thriving beyond what either of us had imagined possible. I opened a business bank account that held 6 figures and sometimes just stared at the balance in disbelief. I had done this. Without Marcus's money, without his connections, without his so-called elevation. I had done it by myself through hard work and skill and determination. Every dollar in that account represented my capability, my value, my refusal to accept the limitations Marcus had tried to impose on me. My personal life improved dramatically as well. I reconnected with friends I had lost touch with during my marriage. Jade and the others welcomed me back warmly. "We missed you so much," Jade told me over dinner one night. "We are so glad you are back and happy." My relationship with my family grew stronger too. My mother, Patricia, told me how proud she was of what I had accomplished. "I always knew you were capable of amazing things," she said. "I just wished I had spoken up sooner about my concerns with Marcus." My sister Sophie was amazed by my transformation. "You are like a completely different person," she observed. "You seem genuinely happy now." When she asked if I regretted marrying Marcus, I thought carefully before answering. "No, I don't regret it. I learned what I absolutely do not want in a partner. And more importantly, I learned what I am truly capable of when I believe in myself." Eventually, I started dating again, keeping things casual and not rushing into anything serious. After years of being controlled, I was enjoying autonomy and choice. I went out with different people, discovered what I liked and did not like, practiced setting boundaries and communicating needs. It felt liberating to make decisions purely for myself without worrying about someone else's approval or disapproval. Marcus tried to contact me multiple times in those first months. Initially, his messages were angry, accusing me of being ungrateful and selfish. Then they shifted to desperate pleas, claiming he had made mistakes and asking if we could talk. I blocked him on every platform and never responded. His words had no power over me anymore. The divorce was finalized 15 months after our separation. When Catherine called with the news that everything was official, I cried with relief. "You are free," she said simply. And I was. Catalyst events reached a major milestone when we were featured in an industry magazine with the headline, "Rising Star in Event Management." There was a photo of me in my office looking professional and confident, and I barely recognized myself. Not because I looked different physically, but because the woman in that photo had something the old Iris lacked. Certainty, self-possession, the knowledge of her own worth. The article was shared widely on social media, and congratulations poured in from former colleagues, old friends, and even some people from Marcus's social circle who had heard about my success. I ran into Keith Marcus's former business partner at an industry event downtown. He approached me to offer congratulations on my company's growth. "I heard about your business. Very impressive," he said. Then he added, "I also heard about you and Marcus. For what it is worth, he is not doing well these days." I felt nothing in response to that information. No satisfaction, no anger, just complete indifference. When I asked what he meant, Keith explained that Marcus's business had been struggling, that he had lost several major contracts, and was having serious financial difficulties. I realized something important in that moment. Marcus had needed me far more than I had ever needed him. I had managed his household, organized his life, made him look good at social events, provided emotional labor he never acknowledged. Without me, he was just a mediocre businessman with poor interpersonal skills and no one to smooth over his rough edges. Meanwhile, I was thriving without him in every possible way. My business was successful. My friendships were strong. My family relationships had healed, and my confidence had been rebuilt from the ground up. 2 years after leaving Marcus, Catalyst Events hit $1 million in annual revenue. We had grown to 15 employees. We operated out of a full office suite downtown with conference rooms and dedicated workspaces. This was not just a side business anymore. This was a legitimate company, a real empire I had built from nothing. I started giving back to the community by mentoring other women who were trying to start their own businesses, especially women who were leaving difficult situations similar to what I had experienced. I remembered how much Simone's mentorship had meant to me, and I wanted to provide that same support to others. One of my mentees told me during a coffee meeting that I gave her hope she could succeed too. "You can," I assured her. "I am living proof that it's possible." I bought my first home 2.5 years after leaving Marcus. It was not a penthouse, just a modest condo in a nice neighborhood, but it was mine, purchased entirely with money I had earned with my name alone on the deed. Moving in day, my mother and sister came to help me unpack boxes and arrange furniture. Sophie looked around at my new place and smiled. "Remember when Marcus said you were nothing without him? Look at you now." I looked around at my new home filled with things I had chosen and paid for with my own hard work. This life I was living was built on a foundation of my own capability and determination. Marcus had been wrong about everything. I could survive without him. I could thrive without him. I had never been nothing. The best revenge was not vindictive or cruel. It was simply my genuine success and happiness. I was fulfilled by my work, surrounded by people who valued me, and confident in my ability to handle whatever challenges came my way. 3 years after leaving, I sometimes stood in my corner office at Catalyst Events headquarters, looking out at the city skyline and marveled at how far I had come. The company was approaching $2 million in annual revenue. We had 25 employees now, and were planning to expand to multiple locations. But success was measured in more than just money. The real measure of my success was internal. It was in the confidence I had regained, in the friendships I had restored, in the self-worth I had rebuilt piece by piece. The journey from Marcus's penthouse to my own empire had not been easy. There were countless nights of tears and doubt, moments when I wondered if I had made the right choice, times when the fear was almost overwhelming. But I never once regretted leaving, because staying would have slowly killed my spirit. Staying would have meant spending the rest of my life making myself smaller. Staying would have meant never discovering my own strength. I thought about the woman I had been during my marriage. Timid, apologetic, constantly seeking permission, believing Marcus when he told me I was worthless. I compared her to the woman I had become. bold, decisive, empowered, certain of her value. The transformation had not happened overnight. It took time and therapy and hard work. My therapist, Dr. Williams, said something that stuck with me. You are not defined by what was done to you. You are defined by what you did after. Those words became something of a personal mantra. What I did after Marcus tried to break me was build an empire. Not just a business empire, but an empire of self-respect and independence and possibility. Sometimes I still saw Marcus around town. The city was not that large, and our industries overlapped occasionally. He looked older and tired every time I saw him. I felt nothing toward him anymore. No anger, no bitterness, just neutral acknowledgement that he was someone I used to know. The last time I encountered him was at an industry conference. Marcus tried to approach me in the lobby, but I politely declined conversation. I have nothing to say to you, I told him calmly. Then I walked away without looking back. That moment felt like final closure. I did not need his apology or acknowledgement. I did not need anything from him at all. My current life is vastly different from what it was during my marriage. I am dating someone named Nathan who is supportive and treats me as an equal partner. He celebrates my success rather than feeling threatened by it. Our relationship is built on mutual respect and genuine affection. Nathan once asked me if I ever worried about ending up in a similar situation again. No, I told him honestly, because I know the warning signs now, and I know with absolute certainty that I will never give up myself for anyone else ever again. My friends comment on how much I have changed. Jade told me recently that I am like a phoenix risen from ashes, stronger and brighter than before. My mother apologized one day for not intervening during my marriage. I should have seen what was happening with Marcus. I should have said something. I reassured her that I had not seen it clearly myself until it was almost too late. What matters is that I got out and that you supported me after. My sister Sophie left her own unhealthy relationship after watching my journey. You showed me it was possible to choose yourself, she told me. Knowing that I had inspired others, especially other women in difficult situations, meant everything to me. My story showed them that escape was possible and that success after escape was also possible. I learned profound life lessons through my experience. First, your worth is never determined by someone else's opinion of you. Marcus called me nothing, but I never actually was nothing. I had always had value. I had just temporarily forgotten it. Second, financial independence is absolutely crucial. I will never again give up control of my own money or ask permission to spend what I earn. Money represents freedom and power and choice. Third, small steps lead to big changes. I started by saving $10 here and $15 there. That grew into a secret business which became a $1 million company. Every significant journey starts with a single small step. Fourth, you cannot heal in the same environment that broke you. I had to leave Marcus to rediscover myself. Staying would only have caused more damage. Sometimes walking away is the bravest and most necessary choice. Fifth, success is best when it is authentic. I was not building my business to prove something to Marcus. I was building the life I genuinely wanted, doing work I loved with people I respected. Looking back at the moment Marcus said, "You are nothing without me," I can see how that sentence became the catalyst for my transformation. It woke me from complacency and gave me motivation to change. But ultimately, I proved it to myself rather than to him. The empire I built is not just the business. It is my reclaimed identity. It is proven resilience. It is testimony to the human capacity for growth and change. My plans for the future include continuing to grow Catalyst events and maybe writing a book about my experience to help other women. I want to live life entirely on my own terms, making choices that align with my values and goals. I realized an important truth through this journey. I never needed Marcus to give me everything. I just needed him to get out of my way so I could give it to myself. Standing at my office window on a recent morning looking out at the same city Marcus once showed me from his penthouse, I realized the view was completely different now. Not because the geography had changed, but because I owned this view. I had earned it through my own effort, and absolutely no one could take it away from me. My core message to anyone who might be in a similar situation is simple. If you feel trapped, remember that the cage only holds you if you believe the bars are real. Financial abuse is devastating and real, but it is not insurmountable. You are capable of far more than you currently know. To anyone experiencing what I experienced, I want to say this. Start small if you must. Save what you can, even if it is just a few dollars at a time. Build what you can with the resources available to you. And when you are ready, walk away. You deserve better. You deserve to be valued and respected and believed in. And to Marcus, wherever he is now, I have a few final thoughts. Thank you for showing me exactly what I do not want in a partner. Thank you for underestimating me so completely. Thank you for saying I was nothing because proving you wrong turned out to be one of the most satisfying accomplishments of my life. But more importantly than anything related to Marcus, I want to thank myself. Thank you for being brave enough to leave. Thank you for taking the risk when the outcome was uncertain. Thank you for believing you deserved better even when someone tried to convince you otherwise. Thank you for building an empire that everyone said was impossible. I am not the woman Marcus tried to make me into. I am the woman I chose to become. And she is so much more than he could ever have imagined. My empire is not just built on contracts and clients and revenue numbers. It is built on an unshakable belief in myself that no one can ever take away again. I am Iris. I am 32 years old, and I am living proof that you can lose everything and still rebuild stronger than before, that you can be told you are nothing and become everything, that the only person whose opinion of you truly matters is your own, that you are never actually nothing. You are always something. You just have to believe it first. Have you ever had someone tell you that you couldn't succeed without them? How did you prove them wrong? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. Your experience might inspire someone else who needs to hear that change is possible. And if this story resonated with you in any way, please hit that like button and subscribe to this channel so you don't miss future stories. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that they are capable of more than they currently believe. Thank you so much for watching and for being part of this community. Remember, you are never nothing. You are always something valuable and worthy. You just have to believe it first. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.